Family Survivor, a story of resilience and survival. Once, there was a man named Elias who lived in a small town nestled at the edge of a dark and mysterious forest. The town, with its cobblestone streets and quiet, almost forgotten ways, had its share of secrets. But Elias's secret was one no one could ever guess. He had a family, a beautiful wife, Jane, and 2 children, a boy named Henry and a little girl, Lily. To the outside world, they were the perfect family. Elias wasn't always a quiet man. He had once been a soldier, a man who had seen war up close and personal. He had fought in foreign lands where the rules of society no longer applied and survival was a brutal game. He had witnessed unimaginable horrors, the screams of dying comrades, the bloodshed, the unbearable weight of loss. But it wasn't just the violence he endured that stayed with him. It was the moments between battles, the moments when his mind had to cope with the ugliness he had witnessed. And when the war ended, Elias was sent back home to his family. In the beginning, Elias did everything he could to play the role of a husband and father. He smiled at his wife, Jane, at the dinner table. He played with his children in the yard, pretending to be the man he once was before the war. But the truth was, every day he was struggling. The images from the battlefield haunted him. The dreams were vivid, horrifying. He had learned to push them aside, to act normal, to pretend. One night, everything came to a head. It was a rainy evening, and Elias had come home from work, his mood darker than usual. The house felt cold, though the fireplace was crackling. Jane, trying to cheer him up, began to ask him about his day, making small talk. And then she said something simple, something innocent, a remark that had nothing to do with the war. She commented on how he had been withdrawn lately, how he hadn't been himself for months. But to Elias, that comment felt like a spark to dry kindling. The anger inside him, fueled by months of pain and torment, bubbled up, boiling over. Without warning, the rage took over. Elias grabbed Jane. Her frightened eyes looked up at him, but he didn't see her. He saw his enemies, the soldiers from the other side. He felt their presence everywhere, in every corner of the room. And then, without thinking, without the control he had fought so hard to maintain, he attacked her, his own wife. The violence didn't stop with Jane. In the midst of his fury, Elias turned toward his children. His son Henry tried to intervene to protect his mother, but Elias, in his rage-fueled madness, hurt him too. Little Lily, just 6 years old at the time, watched, paralyzed with fear, from the doorway to the living room. The world she knew, the family she loved, was crumbling before her eyes. And then, as quickly as the violence had started, it stopped. Elias stood there panting, his chest heaving, the silence of the house ringing in his ears. The faces of his family lay still on the ground. He blinked, and the reality of what he had done crashed into him like a wave. His wife, his children, gone. The anger drained away, replaced by an unbearable guilt, but it was too late. They were gone. But Lily was still there. She had hidden in the closet, shaking in terror, too frightened to move. When the chaos ceased, she didn't dare leave her hiding spot until hours later. When she stepped out, the house was eerily silent. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood. She stumbled through the wreckage, her small hands trembling as she touched the walls, the floors, the bodies of her family. She was too young to understand what had happened, but she understood one thing clearly. She was alone, completely and utterly alone. In the days that followed, Lily wandered the empty house. She would sit by the window, staring out at the forest, waiting for someone to come, anyone to explain why everything had gone wrong. But no one came. Elias had been taken away. The authorities found him broken and lost. Lily, however, survived. She didn't know how she did it, but she did. She learned to be strong, to bury her fears deep inside. She moved in with her aunt and uncle, but even they couldn't take away the memories, the nightmares, the flashes of violence. But she would never speak of what happened that night. She couldn't bring herself to. To do so would mean acknowledging the horror, confronting the monster that her father had become. Years passed. Lily grew up, though she never really grew normal. She became an advocate for survivors of violence, for children who had lost their families in the most traumatic ways. Her message was clear. You can survive even the darkest of circumstances, even when everything around you falls apart. But Lily was not just a survivor. She was a voice for those who couldn't speak. She took every opportunity to raise awareness about the effects of trauma, the damage done by war, and the struggles of those who live in the shadow of violence. She didn't want to be defined by the tragedy, but rather by her resilience. Her journey wasn't easy, and there were many nights when the weight of the past felt unbearable. But she pushed through. She refused to be consumed by the anger that had once ruled her father. Instead, she chose to be a light in the darkness. And so, the story of Elias, the killer, became part of the larger story of Lily, the survivor. The story of a little girl who had lost everything but found the strength to rebuild, to speak out, and to inspire others to find their own way out of the darkness. This story is not just about a killer, nor is it about vengeance. It is the story of survival, of a young girl who rose from the ashes of a broken family. It is about the power of resilience, the courage to speak up, and the strength to heal, even after the worst imaginable horrors. It reminds us that no matter how deep the wounds, no matter how dark the night, the light of hope can always shine through.